What's up, fiends? Alucard here. Today, we are visited by first-time feature filmmakers, writer-director Peter Melancon, and assistant director slash project manager Lisa Kirchner. They have made a film entitled Cannibal Witches from Hell, which just got finished shooting about a month ago. We will hear what it was like making the film and the lessons that they learned along the way. So it should be a really interesting conversation. Without any further ado, let's get to the show. All right. So let's welcome Peter and Lisa to the show. Thank you for coming, guys.
What's up, dude?
Appreciate it. All right. So tell us a little bit about Cannibal Witches from Hell.
Oh, which one of us wants to go first?
It's your baby. You go first, Peter. I'll just
All
add
right.
color commentary. Yeah.
Okay. Cannibal Witches from Hell is a project I've been working on for 5 years. Originally started out as a project called The Woods, and it was going to be a short film. And originally, all I had was witches in the thing, but before even the witches showed up, it was totally different idea and concept. It was a woman that her car crashes in the woods, or she crashes on the road and she wanders in the woods and then meets up with these witches. That was the basis of it. No nun, no coked up cheerleader, no Spanish guy, none of that shit that was in the film is there in those first drafts. It was even the Middle Ages precursor. I had the witches going back and how they became the witches and all that other stuff as well, way before I wrote that any of the other stuff. So then I got to a point when I was writing a short story. I was like, I'll just do, is this a short story kind of within that world and write this. And that's the one that had the coked up cheerleader. That's the one that had the nun. And I was like, actually, I want to watch this. So I'm going to make this into a short film. And so when I was trying to do that into a short film, I was like, let me try this as a slasher film first and see if this works as a short slasher film. And I had the character of an undead crusader who roams the woods, and that would become part of the woods for the witches and so on and so forth. So I did that, and I was going to use that as a precursor for the film and put it as an intro. And then I thought about it. I was like, I'm just going to put it in the film. So the short film is actually going to be in the film itself. So I was able to kind of add that together with it. So I've been working on that as well with it. But that's where that story comes from. The story just comes from because I was bored because nothing was on TV that I want to see. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I want to see a mercenary nun with a coked up cheerleader with a bunch of knives that kills people. And why not have a guy called the Spanish guy that's not Spanish at all that hangs out into a biker club full of clowns? I'd watch that, sure. I'd watch something like that. So I was like, that's basically how it came about.
And from knowing you, I've known you now for over 25 years. Mm-hmm. I know, that's a long time. That so sounds like you. I'm just saying. Yeah. If you know Peter at all, and I'm sure some of you people watching probably do, you know that this is definitely a Peter story for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, clowns.
Always clowns. Yeah. So how did you get the title?
I just thought about it one day. I was just playing around with shit. And then one day I was like, well, there are witches. They are cannibals. I was like, oh my God, perfect title, Cannibal Witches from Hell. I was like, shit. So when I did that, I just went to Backstage, which is a place where you can find actors. Mm-hmm. And I just put that title out and I got a shit ton of hits just from the title alone. I even asked one of my actors, I was like, why'd you want to do this? And she's like, I like the title. She didn't even, I was like, okay, well, title works apparently. So that was a plus. And then after that, ironically, when I got closer to start shooting, I got festivals started asking about it, out of curiosity, and then throwing it up on IMDb. And then I got more festivals curious about what is this. So I was like, okay, that's scary.
Well, it is a really interesting title. It sounds like one of those grindhouse, B movies that just explode one day, like Hobo with a Shotgun or something. I love it. Random,
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. So what films or other media, I should say, inspired you to write this story?
Oh shit. There's Warrior Nun Aurelia, which I used to read in the early '90s, which was kind of like a manga looking anime comic. Red Sonja was another one for that. The movie The Last Circus is a huge, definitely is a huge, it's a huge interesting film for me, at the very least. So that's another one for that. But as far as it goes for the coked up cheerleader, I think that comes from Dead or Alive. Even though there's no coked up cheerleader in Dead or Alive, there's a lot of coke being sniffed in the very beginning of that opening. And I'm talking about like Takashi Miike's Dead or Alive, not the video game DOA video.
I was hoping.
Yeah. So yeah. So that was one. That's definitely one that really kind of made me jump at the idea of that. And like, oh, maybe I can do like a lot of cocaine, and like Brian De Palma films kind of pops up from that too, as well as stuff like ideas from Carrie, things like Indiana Jones popped up at one point, as well. Not Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. That kind of comes in with just a look and kind of a weird feel for the clown biker bar. Kind of, I would say that you could kind of see that that's kind of inspired by that aspect of things. So yeah, that was more or less part of it as well.
And I see you also have another assistant director right behind you.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, she just popped up into the camera, hanging out behind me now. Yeah. So yeah, but that's part of the inspirations I got from it. Hammer films, sure. A lot of grindhouse films. I mean, growing up, when you're a kid, you don't know what the difference is between an A-list movie and a B movie. So all I ever watched as a kid was B movies. I didn't really like, if it didn't have a monster, I really didn't want to watch it unless it was a period piece. So if it doesn't have a monster in it, I was like, I'm not watching this shit. And I still can't write a drama to save my life. I've tried many times and it's just not in me because that's so boring. And when I watch a lot of actors, when they come from this drama background, it's really boring when you see like they're real sometimes, because that it's a safe place type thing doing dramas, I feel. Because for an actor, I get it though, because they're like, I was talking to my actors about movies. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, what? And then I realized that they know actors and mainly monologues and shit. But they don't know movies, and that's what the difference between a filmmaker, I think, and a filmmaker and an actor, because the actors most times they won't know unless they grew up the same like generation that you did. They'll know the movies you're talking about, right? Or they'll have that one or two movies that inspired them, and that's about it. Whereas for me, it's like anything that was half the movie, Stuart Gordon. People are like, who the fuck is Stuart Gordon? I'm like, yeah, you don't know what I'm talking about then. It's like you didn't see Reanimator, you didn't watch, Dead Alive, which is Peter Jackson, but I mean, they didn't watch stuff like the crazy B movie. People think of Peter Jackson now, they think Lord of the Rings, whereas I think Meet the Feebles and I think Brain Dead. Those are the two movies I always think, and then The Frighteners comes to mind too. I mean, those are movies that I think of, but I don't think of Lord of the Rings when I think of Peter Jackson. I'm like, oh yeah, he did do that. That becomes that for me. But yeah, it's B movies is pretty much where I lived. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I try to explain that to people. It's like, yeah, you just got to watch that. Phantasm. Like I can name B movie actors, and then I'm like, okay, if I'm with a hoity-toity crowd, I can do the Scorsese films, because Scorsese did grindhouse films. Oh yeah, and that's the thing. People don't realize he did like B movie grindhouse films. So did James Cameron. Jaws is just a big budget B movie. I mean, it's basically a slasher film with a shark. That's all that is. But they're not. People don't really see it that way, or they just don't know their grindhouse movies. I mean, Stuart Gordon to me was my go-to guy. Dolls, Reanimator, From Beyond,
Robot Jocks.
Robot Jocks is great. Castle Freak. Those are movies that I grew up watching, and I love the homage stuff. Like I love the grindhouse movie that Tarantino and Rodriguez did. Planet Terror and Death Proof. And a lot of people don't like Death Proof because they say like that's his weakest film. But anytime I can hear Kurt Russell scream like a little girl and get his ass kicked by like 3 girls, I found it fucking hilarious. And I thought it was a great movie to watch, you know. And then I love the fake trailers in it, but I think a lot of people today don't understand or don't get those type of films, and I think that's why it bombed. They just said, what is this? This is like shitty looking movies. And it's like, yeah, you just you don't get there's a charm about that, you know, like they just don't see it.
Right. Oh yeah, I totally get that. So Lisa, how did you get involved with Peter and this all this craziness?
I apparently am a glutton for punishment. Peter approached me at the beginning of this year or end of last year. I don't even remember, but he asked me if I wanted to be assistant director for his first feature-length film. And I was like, I don't know. Let's talk more about this because this seems like a really big commitment, you know, and never done anything like this before. And then Peter basically sat me down and lied to me, and then I got reeled into it. And the next thing I know, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I have no idea what I got myself into. And here we are on the last day, and everyone wants to, like, just wants it to be done. And I'm just like, all right, guys, come on, we're almost there. We're almost there. So I don't know. It was luck, dumb luck, blind luck, being naive and stupid. I don't really know how to describe it, but like I said, Peter's quite a storyteller. And the next thing I know, I'm like, sure, I'll be your assistant director. How bad can it be? It's fine. It's fine.
You pretty much summed up the whole entire film experience at the same time. That too.
Yeah.
So okay, so you said this started like 5 years ago, you said? About? So all right, so how did you eventually come to find your cast and crew?
Well, that's a good question. What happened first is I had the same DP I usually use. And I didn't have to really worry about my crew so much because when I did the short film, I already had my crew in place. And the same thing goes, I had a cast in place. But coming 4 months before I start shooting, shit falls apart, which is how it always seems to happen when you're doing film in general. So I'm like, well, here it goes. I'm ready for this shit. I was ready for anything that could go wrong. I'm just ready for it because I'm like, it's going to happen one way or the other and just roll with it. That's basically all you can do. So at this point, my DP says, hey, I can't do it. I got to drop out. I got this other job that pays a lot more. Sorry, see you later type thing. And it's like 3 weeks before we shoot. I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, damn.
So I tell my other camera guy, hey, I need a DP. Can you help me out? Well, I need a camera guy. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll know somebody. So he sent like 4 or 5 people. Talked to him. I got a guy named Ryan Thoreau, who is just really good, but he's a character in himself. But he basically came on board and became the DP. And it's even kind of funny because I asked him, like, this is the camera I want to use, which was a little Blackmagic camera. And he's like, dude, fuck no, we can't use that. We got to go with this. And I'm like looking at the price like, Jesus Christ almighty. Okay, that's what we need. And he's like, he's really good at pitching. This guy's a great businessman. This guy would pitch you something like I kind of did with Lisa. He did that to me. And so I was like, okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. You know, so we used a Sony FX7 cinematic cameras. So that's what we ended up using. And he's really good. He knows his stuff. And I was like, it looks grainy. He's like, let me turn that off and let me show you what it looked like. Like, oh, I see. He's like, yeah, look through the monitor. Don't look through the little viewfinder, he says, and you'll see it better. It's like, okay, cool. So he was one that I've never worked with before. So I have for my first feature now, I'm using a brand new DP. So that's one. My audio guy is now way too expensive. When I talked to him about it, he's like, yeah, I've got new equipment and everything. He's like, yeah, I can't afford you anymore, dude. And he's like, well, I can find you somebody else. So then my new audio guy comes on. His name is Asher Griffin, and he's really good. And he's like, he just rolled with everything. He was like perfect. You know, that's a dude I would definitely work with like for everything. And he said, he says, "Yep, I'm on board. Whatever you need, man. That's fine." So that was a new audio guy. I had a new cast. I mean, and then my cast members, my main two cast, which was going to be my nun and my cheerleader, dropped out within 3 months prior, or 6 months prior. So I'm like, shit. And so once again, I had to go back and recast all over again. I had to bring in new girls to do fittings and everything else, and so on and so forth. And I got better actresses than the ones I got before. Nothing to take away from the other actresses that I had before. They still are really good actresses, but they were like saying, and I understand this, what kind of movie this is going to be. They were thinking like that. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I told it's a B movie. I get it. Micro budget B movie. I totally understand. So they jumped ship. And then I got these new girls that came in, and I was auditioning them, and I was like, wow, these girls are great, and I have them in place. And then I needed my male actors. I got my female actresses first. All three of my leads were from LA. And then I needed my I needed my lead, and I was going to use Frank, as you know who Frank is, Frank Varela. And Frank's like, I don't think I could play this character. And I was like, yeah, I don't think you can either. I was trying to help him with it as much as I could before we started working. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. And then David Glasser, out of nowhere just contacts me like, oh, you're making a feature, dude. That's cool. I'm like, David, this is perfect. It was like perfect. It was like a godsend. So I like called David up. I was like, do you want to come to New Orleans? You want to be in my film? You want to be like the third lead or fourth lead? And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. I was like, this is all I can pay. I can't pay you much. I'm sorry. And he's like, no, that's fine. I was like, and plus the producer aspect of me was really happy because this is one less person I don't have to worry about a hotel for. And he has transportation. So I was like, fucking right. This is perfect. So this is stuff that went through my head. So he was on board. After that, then I was realized like Frank, I was going to have Frank play like a different character. And I was like, okay, Frank, well, since I have this guy, I'll have you play a smaller character. Can you do that and be in a few different roles? He's like, yeah, I could do that. That's fine. So I'm talking to him about it. And then I realized, I was like, shit, Frank, you can't be here on certain days though. He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, so let me think about this. So I had another actress that I was still thinking about that was on the fence with, because I already casted my cheerleader and my nun. But I was like, this one's really good. Let me see if there's something else I can change. Since Frank's other part he wouldn't be there for, I switched it and made it a female character for this other actress. And I had her become like, oh, she can become like an undercover officer inside the place. 2 birds with 1 stone, because then she's like a waitress in here as well. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. And then she's the one that told me, she's like, yeah, but you still need somebody that I talk to that comes in the. I was like, oh shit. So then I was like, hey, Frank, you're playing still the same kind of the same thing with less lines, and that's what you're doing here. And he's like, okay, I can do that. So I was like, all right. So that was my general cast. And then I came across Sean was in there from the very beginning, Sean Holleran. And I asked Sean, do you want to do this? And he's like, it's a big role, man. I don't know if I can do this. I was like, let's just try, because it was between him and Ryan Castro playing like a character called the Spanish guy. And when Ryan did it, Ryan was doing it just like how he thought was right. Very serious and all. Sean comes in with a country ass accent and everything else. I'm like on the floor laughing. I was like, okay, yeah, you've got to play this part like that, because that's freaking hilarious. And so Sean ended up getting the part of the Spanish guy. So that ended up, and that was a big role. And Sean was very worried. He's like, I'm not good. And all the actors, including the actors from LA, they were like, you're good. You're really good. They were like telling him that. And he's like, I'm not good. So it was kind of funny having him do it. And he did a great job. Everybody thought he was really good at it. And then, yeah, after that was pretty much my main cast that I ended up picking from. Not knowing, none of them, including myself, not knowing like how much shit is going to be thrown at us one way or the other, that's because I wasn't as prepared as I should be. But, this is what I always tell people. If I was as prepared as I should be, I don't think I would have ever done anything.
Right.
for that. And I told a friend of mine the same thing, because he had another podcast asked me the exact same question. Like, he says, do you think if you knew all the parameters in place, do you think you would have done this? I was like, absolutely not. But I'm happy I did. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, because it's called stupidity. And if you know all the stuff that's going against you, you're going to be like, no. It's like going into a burning building, not knowing it's on fire. And you're like, oh, well, it's just smoke. I can go through there and just walk in and just get some stuff and come out. And the building's literally on fire, That's how it was. But I feel that I don't think, and I also think that anytime, and I think film school, honestly, was a waste of time for me, because of the fact that I've actually learned more when I always do films. And every film I've done, the short films, I always kind of now laugh at people. And I don't mean to be mean, but it's kind of like a smirk. Because the fact when they say, oh, I produced a short film and I directed a short film, it's like, oh, it's like, that's nice, like, good for you. It's not trying to be condescending, but until you do a feature film, it's like, that's nothing. It really is totally, completely different. You have no idea what the fuck you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And it is literally like being pushed into the fire. I honestly believe if anybody really wants to be a producer or a director, just don't look at anything and just do it. Be stupid and just go. Because once you start seeing like everything against you, you're gonna be like, I can't do this. I'll never do this. I can't. And then you're not gonna do anything. And then you're gonna wonder what would have happened, or what if. Look, I made some fantastically stupid mistakes, fucking dumb ones, I mean, like, Jesus Christ,
Lisa's just like,
yeah, no, yeah, she knows all about it, I mean,
yeah, oh yeah,
it's like, Jesus Christ. And afterwards, when I'm seeing like some of these emails coming, like, holy fucking shit, should I do this again? It was literally that was part of that dialogue, I had with myself. It was like, gee, it's almost like, thank God I'm not John Landis bad, but man, I felt like John Landis after he did like fucking Twilight Zone, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I was like,
that's a hell of a comparison, Peter. Like, seriously.
That's like as far as I can go.
The breaks here. Okay, so I just want to clarify that no one died on our set. No one got seriously injured. So, it was,
that's just me
you're okay, bro. You're all right.
It's just me over exaggerating, of course, but that's the only way I could think of like how I felt, it was like how crazy I felt with it. Like, we had one actress hurt her toe, sprained her toe, nothing serious, but I was like, oh shit, that was it the whole time. Right. When you hear like one of your actresses getting stung by a bee, you're like, really? And literally, because you're in the woods, there's the certain things you can't do. I mean, I had poison oak for 2 days, and I have to be on set for like 5 in the morning, 4:45, 5 in the morning. I can't. Who the fuck am I going to complain to? It's just like, I got to show up for set and just deal with it. Then I found out my DP had poison ivy the last day, and me and him talked. Yeah. So, and he didn't say shit. He told me afterwards, like, I got to put aloe all over my body. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I got poison ivy. I'm like, really? And I told him, I was like, well, now I don't feel so bad telling you this. He's like, what is it? I was like, I got poison oak. I had poison oak all over mine. So yeah, I understand what he's like. And he's like, me and him we were completely covered, Do
you think your brother-in-law did that on the sly? Like,
probably.
Like, purposely placed poison ivy and poison oak around.
Oh, fuck Peter up with his shit. Yeah, that's probably what.
Wait, where is he filming? Yeah.
That was the crazy part about it. That was one aspect, just getting like that. And then, oh my God, I think my father-in-law saved my life figuratively and literally. I had to bring, the lodge was, we filmed in New Orleans on one night. Mm-hmm. And we were moving all the stuff out to get, so because the next day we had to go back across the lake. We were filming in Covington and points. So, the bridge is 45 minutes going across that lake. So here I am cleaning everything out. It's probably like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. One of the grip guys, he's telling me he's got to be in Mississippi at 4 a.m. or something like that. And I'm like, Jesus, it's almost 1. this dude needs to sleep or something. I was like, okay. So I was like, well, don't worry, you got it. You go home. I'll take, my effects girl back across the lake to where they were staying at. And my father-in-law looks at me, wait, you're going back across the lake? I was like, yeah. It's like, what time do you need to go back to across? It's like, I have to be there for 5. And so he's like, so you're not going to sleep at all. And you just did a 12-hour day. I'm like, yeah, that's the basis of what this is like at times. Yes. And then he's like, how about I take her? And I was like, okay. And so Adele told her, my effects girl, like, this is my dad. He's safe. He's okay, because it's a guy that she's never met, and he took her, back across the lake, gave us a call. It's like, okay, the girl's back in her cabin. The young lady's back in her cabin. Everything's good. I'm like, okay. Funny part is I didn't sleep anyway. It's like, I think me and Lisa probably got about the same amount of sleep through the whole entire thing. That's why I kind of laugh when I'm hearing talent at times like upset about sleeping, and I'm like, I didn't sleep at all at times. And it's like, I mean, and I thank God for Lisa, because she's hearing both sides. So she totally gets where the actors are coming from with stuff, and then she totally gets where I and the crew are coming from with stuff. At the same exact time. So it's
a hell of a place to be.
I'm telling you,
you're right there in the middle.
Just learn so much. Yeah. I learned so much.
So for me, I was more or less like, okay, first day we did pretty good. We actually did pretty good. We were okay with everything.
Mm. But
as the second day got on, we got a little bit behind. And the third day we got very much behind. And I was like, oh shit. I screamed maybe once or twice. I don't remember. But I screamed like once or twice. Was it more than once or twice?
I don't recall you screaming. It was like, are you talking about like an internal scream, like inwards?
Oh, no. I mean like outwards. Because I remember like on Saturday, I had to scream. We had so many people. I don't scream, but I had to get people's attention. And I was like, we don't have a bull.
You still didn't get people's attention, Peter. You're so soft-spoken. Like no one heard you. No one knew what was happening.
Yeah, she bullhorn or something.
Everybody like, listen. I'm like, okay, that's what we need to do, because I can't get everybody to pay attention. So that helped. The next thing after that was the fact that this is the most people I've had on a set, period, that I had to deal with. I've had like about 30 people on a Saturday, roughly, on average that day. And so, and on a non-normal day, it was 15 people at the very least. So that's constant. Before this, when you're doing a short 6, 7, easy. And then this is what I think is interesting, because I've had producers, and I think this is why people have been interested in the podcast talking to me now. They said, you did a fucking feature in 5 days. How are you still alive, first of all? And then they're like,
that's like Roger Corman level.
Right, exactly. They're like, how the fuck are you still alive? And number 2, does everybody want to kill you? And I was like, yeah, pretty much everybody wants to kill me. And I've learned a lot of things I wouldn't do again, obviously, but I totally understand it. Like, look, I read Corman's book. I've actually watched commentaries with Corman, and like people that worked with Corman that are, A-list directors now, like Joe Dante, James Cameron was effects guy for Corman. Hell, Stallone started with him. Jack Nicholson started with him. All those guys started with him, and they all went to do bigger, better things. And I was like, well, if I can be a Corman, I'll be okay with that, being like a B movie guy, and everybody else goes and does better things. At least they could say like, that guy's nuts, which I am. What I have learned though from that was with my actors, they told me about safety. They taught me, you got to deal with safety issues. You got to deal with, better communication all the way around, because I suck with communication, which is kind of funny being a director. Yeah, exactly. But then at the same time, you're not going to learn that by doing a short. I've done 4 shorts and they're fine. But the thing is, that's one little scene basically you're working on for 2 or 3 days. That's nothing. Right. That is absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah, so this is a whole different ballgame.
Right. Doing a feature is a whole different ballgame, and you're just trying to move as fast as you can. You have 4 days, or technically 5 days. You're just moving as fast as you can. You're just trying to get shit out, and you can't let you have different personalities that you're dealing with, so you have to have this mindset. You're exhausted by day 3 or day 2. You're exhausted, so you're just on pure adrenaline. You're just moving on pure, as most people are at that point, or just moving on pure adrenaline. And I think if anybody got a decent amount of sleep, I really would be jealous of them because I would love that. But yeah, you're on adrenaline. You're just moving. And I did Lisa asked me this, would you do this again? Which was funny. After reading the emails and all the shit I got, and dealing with apologies that I had to deal with, which was I had to do absolutely because I mean, pushing people to their limits. You're pushing actors to their limits. You're pushing your crew to your limits.
You've had a lot to apologize for, Peter. You had a lot to apologize for.
Tons. Oh yeah, so I had a lot to apologize with. So I'm at 90% of finishing my apologies. So I'm almost done. So. Anyway, somebody asked me how many of your cast members would work with you again? It's it's 50%. I was 50% of my cast work. But then a producer told me something which I thought was very interesting. He said, well, let's put it this way, because I told him the whole story. I told him everything that happened, because he's like, if I'm going to invest money in you, I need to know everything that happened. I'm like, okay. So I told him everything. And he's like, okay, well, you know what? You fucked up, sure. But you still did something in 5 days. He says, and, as a producer aspect, no one was hurt. No one died. He says, were people's feelings hurt? Sure. He says, but you know what? That's a director. That's a producer. That happens. He said, I was like, yeah, but he's like, yeah, you're going to have to work on contracts. Sure. Things like that need to be done next time for sure. He says, but he says, you're in the woods, you're in elements. You don't have control over the elements. He says, you could tell people they're snakes, but snakes are going to come out of the ground no matter what. You don't have a budget to go buy and check every snake hole for 3 acres or a half acre of land. It's impossible. So he kind of got that. He says, if this was a multi-billion-dollar budget or multi-million-dollar budget, different story. He says, so I was like, yeah, but he says, you're going to always lose actors. And he says, that's a given. And then I said, well, what about my directing? He says, if you just, because I told him I just said, okay, and that's good. And some of my actors didn't like that. He says, so what? He says, that's your directing style. You're at pace. You finished a product. You got from beginning to ending. He says, don't change your directing style that you're trying to hone because your actors don't like it. That just means you and your actors can't work together as much as they want from you. Most directors hate shooting the most. They hate actual production, which is true. I know a lot of directors that
I was going to ask was that your least favorite part of this?
Oh God, it's always my least favorite part, man. I mean, every time, even when I shot shorts, it's like my least favorite. My most favorite is writing and editing, because you're back to being by yourself. You're back to being you as a human being, because you have everybody I could talk to my camera guys better than I can talk to my actors. I could talk to my DP and tell them stuff like, let's do this. I know we're going to see this. Can we blur this out? Can we do this? I could do that and talk to them about stuff like that. What we're going to see in the background, what can they do? And we're like, okay, we can try that. Last day was a shit show. And I'll tell you, because you're on 2 hours of sleep, poison oak. I have, Pepto in my hand, man. I'm like, my brother-in-law's come in and chew me out by 5:30. I'm like, shit's going to happen here. All this stuff is going on in my head, and then my effects, we didn't do any of the effects yet. So my effects girl is doing all insert shots. That's the only way we can do this. So,
okay.
Yeah. So then because of that, it's going to fuck up your master. So you're like, all right, I got to figure this out on the fly. This is how it's going to work. I'm literally thinking of that while I'm thinking 4 things ahead and 4 things in my mind beforehand. And I've learned that's a better way for me to shoot. and honesty. I know they would hate to hear that, but it's the truth. I wanted to be David Lynch. I wanted everybody to love me. Like everybody loves David Lynch. You know, you always hear that. I was Werner Herzog, man. You know, I basically became Werner Herzog instead, you know. The guy, everybody's like, that guy's a madman. That's basically what I felt like. Because the first day I had my shot sheets, I had storyboards to look at. The second day we got behind, it's like, yeah, I got to throw this out. This is not going to work anymore. I've got to just like figure out pace and movements and just keep going and knocking things out, cutting stuff out, you know, because it's like, or else we won't have an ending, you know. And I remember one day, no offense to my actors, but I remember one day people were asking for close-ups. My cameramen were getting aggravated. I could see it in their faces. They were looking at me like, oh my God, what's going on here? And then they were looking at me, my actresses looking at me. So I finally just said, I could do this all day, but then we're not going to finish. We're not going to have an ending. You know, I can only give you 3 takes and that's it. You know, and my DP says, normally we do 6. And this is the Corman aspect of it. Corman only does 3 takes, period. No. And that's all. And I knew I would have to do that going in. It has to be 3, you know, so it is the Corman method. And I wanted to see if I could do the Corman method by doing this. And like my producers have told me, they said, well, this is like your master's class. This is how you have to treat it. You know, if you want to make it, you want to make it hard on yourself. He says, if you didn't make this hard on yourself, you would basically not learn a damn thing, because it's easier to have everything. I've never seen a perfect set, even on big budget films. Never. Shit always happens. The same thing is when people say like, well, reshoots don't happen on big films. Like, really? That's why they like make a movie come back like 2 years later, because they have to reshoot probably half the damn film. It happens even on big budget films.
Right.
People don't know that or understand that still, you know. And my producer says, do you think you'll have to do some reshoots? I was like, I can't, because half my actors probably won't talk to me. But what I can do is I can add new scenes with the actors that can and will talk to me. And I've already talked to a few of them. They said they would come back for free and just do it, just fix stuff and finish it with me.
Finish it up, right?
Yeah. And I was like, wow. Really? You guys would still for free? It's like, yeah, just pay for our tickets, pay for, you know, a place to stay. And yeah, you don't have to pay us anything. We'll just finish it, you know, whatever you need from us. And I'm like, holy shit, you guys are madmen, but thank you. You know, so they were all up for it whenever I would need it. So I was like, I don't want to do reshoots with you guys. I'm just going to add new scenes. I said, I can do that and make it easier on everybody. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, that's smart. It's like, yeah, it'll be easier. And I'll figure that out. But I also have animation sequences in this film. So I'm waiting for the animation to be finished and done. So that takes a while. So some people are already asking me, like, did you do my reel? And I'm like, no, I didn't do your freaking reel yet. Jesus Christ, I'm a one-person show here, god damn it, you know. I'm not like rich, you know. And so it's like shit like that you have to wait on, you know. My god. So there's just a lot of things that I could have prepped for better, sure. But even if you prep, you're still gonna miss something, because you're gonna do like 6 or 7 things. You know, you're wearing 6 or 7 hats. Right. And then you're giving it to somebody to do something. That's fine, but I've had to learn to delegate on this. And then sometimes people don't want to delegate and go off book, and that's hard for them sometimes. So I've had to learn how to like find a way to kind of finagle once in a while to like kind of like, you need to go this way, you know. And that was tough. That was hard to do. But everybody's green. This is not a crew I've worked with before, and this is not a cast I've worked with before. And you're doing a Corman style feature in 5 days. So you're going to get a lot of shit. You know, I am happy that no one left. So while we're shooting,
came very close. Very close.
I believe it. I was waiting. Yeah, I was waiting for it. I honestly was waiting for people like to leave. I'm like, I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting to hear it. I'm waiting to hear it. You know, and I was like, no one left. Well, I'm kind of shocked.
I'm pretty sure everyone who was on set at one time or another was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I here right now? What is happening? What is going on right now?
Yeah. It's funny because go ahead, Al.
Yeah, so how did you keep the peace? How did you
Lisa, how did you keep the peace?
Yeah, how did you deal with Lisa, how did you deal with Peter?
Yeah. That's a good one too.
That's a great question because if anyone was going to kill him, it was going to be me.
Yeah.
I was first in line and I had the knife right in my hand, facing him, being like, Peter, I'm going to fucking kill you. Like, I'm very, very close. If you don't start getting people like going and get things moving, I will personally kill you. So it was, you know, the big thing about Peter is he comes from a good place. He has it in his mind and he's very, very smart and he knows what he's doing. But as far as regurgitating that and like communicating it out to people, it's like something gets lost in translation as it exits his mouth.
Yeah,
and so I think just having the history that I do with Peter and, you know, helped me be able to communicate a lot better with him, more so, like I would say, on a different level than a lot of other people on set could. Right. And just trying to get him to stay focused, get him to speak up, because he can get very, you know, unlike what we've seen in the last 41 minutes here, is Peter actually on set is very quiet and does not go all chatty Cathy, you know, just balls to the wall. Like it's almost, you know, like there's so much going on in his mind that he can't get it out. And it's like right now in the moment, Peter, I need you to focus. I need you to do this. I need you to communicate right now to your DP exactly what the fuck you were trying to do. Because if we don't get moving, your brother-in-law will fucking murder all of us. And there will be lots of holes around this property. And I'm talking like shallow graves too, because this motherfucker wouldn't put the energy in to do like 6 feet. He would not dig 6 feet. So, you know, I'm talking shallow graves, like mini shallow graves around this little 1.5 acre property. So that was my main driver, just getting the film shot before people walked off set, before people got to their wits' end. And it got very close. I mean, a lot of people did get to their wits' end. And luckily, Peter has a lot of people who love him that were able to, you know,
calm him down.
Yeah, I don't want to say ease over, but, you know, maybe just remind everyone why we're there. And I think that was the biggest thing. But no, everyone was a troop. The cast, the crew, they were all fucking rock stars to have made it through to the end. I mean, it really was a sprint marathon that, you know, like no one ever really got to fully recover from until 2.5, 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
Even that's still questionable for some. So no, it was rough. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And like I said, I had no idea what I was getting into. It was learning on the fly. You talk about building a plane while you're flying. We barely had a frame. Like I don't know how we even kept it in the air for as long as we did. But luckily we were able to, you know, get something built, and we'll see how she flies. But no, it was definitely an experience, one that I will never forget, and I still have nightmares about.
Oh, I can imagine. But it seems like you were successful. You've completed what you wanted to complete.
Yeah, we went all the way through shooting. Well, the last day after the last shot, my wife Adele was on set, you know, and Jesus Christ. I mean, putting up with me in general, I'm impressed I'm even married, honestly. You know, I'm impressed women even talk to me, honestly, because I'm loco crazy, you know. But the fact of it is that she was like freaking out before I even started. You know, she was like, you know, nervous and scared because she's like, oh, this money and blah, blah, blah. You're crazy. But at the same time, she's like, you need to do this. I'm like, yeah, I know. And then she's like, she's on set trying to pick up before my brother-in-law got home. Like half the people that were not on camera were picking up in the background, trying to get us to hurry up. And I needed to focus, obviously. And Lisa punched me, which was funny. She did not know I had poison oak because I didn't tell anybody, because I didn't want anybody to know. So she punches me in the shoulder. She's like, pay a funk attention. And I'm like, well, what my brother like? She's like, my brother's gonna be here anytime. She's like, suck it up and fucking focus. Okay, the movie's forever. This is temporary. Your brother-in-law's temporary. Like, no, that's a good point. And I was like, that's actually really good advice. And then it's like I told that to my producer. He says, what helped you get through all of this? And I said, those words. I mean, that was it. After she said, suck it up and focus, it started happening where I was able to start sucking it up more and more and just focusing on what needed to be done. I was exhausted, granted, but that's when I realized that even if you make the wrong decisions, you still need to make a decision, no matter what. And sometimes even if you're making a decision, someone's not going to like it. And that's because you have 20, 30 people on set. Not everybody's going to like what you're going to do or say. And that's something that you just have to deal with. You can't please everybody, no matter what. And that is something I had to learn. I had to learn that I could not be everyone's friend. You know, the thing that I learned the most on this was saying the word no, which was hard for me to say because I always want to say yeah and sure and okay. Right. No was the hardest thing I had to learn to say was no. And I learned that like the last day, the second to last day and the last day I started learning those lessons of no and, just being a little bit more stern and like, oh, well, I didn't do this. Oh, well, it's too late for that. Can't go back and reverse this mistake. You just got to keep going forward and trying to finish a project. That's all you can do at that point. And that's why when some people asked me, they were saying like, are you sorry that you pushed everybody so hard? It's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry I pushed everybody hard. Everybody has different limits and some people are not used to these limits, Granted, even if I told them I'm shooting Corman style, no one's going to know what the hell that is except for me and you, Al. I mean, most people are like, what the fuck is Corman style? Because they don't teach Roger Corman in film school, though they should. If they really want to learn how to make a movie, honestly, just don't watch Corman films. Read his books on making films because that'll teach you definitely how to do it. And he didn't do everything I've learned in film school, like I said earlier, they lie to you. They tell you basically, they're telling you like even when you're filming a film in film school, they're giving you parameters on playing in this like sandbox. Like it doesn't work that way in real life. It's not going to work this way in real life. When Lisa said, do you want to, after she told me everybody's like grievances on everything that they had problems with, she said the thing that I thought was funny. And I swear, I wonder if she was smirking on the other line when she said this. She says, do you want to do this again? That was what she asked me on the phone. Do you want to do this again? And I paused for about like a second. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it again. I'll do this again. And then she was like, okay, well then we need to talk. It was basically telling me what I shouldn't do, what I can't do, and things like that, which is fine. That's when I learned the difference of you can't be friends. You got to just be a director and a producer. You cannot, those. And even my producers have told me that. It's like, yeah, the last thing you can be with your actors is their friend. That's the worst thing you can do. And he says, you made that mistake and, that's going to hurt you for the rest of your life, but you can do that. He says, but you know what? They don't teach you that in film school. They don't teach you like that factor of it. They just say like, these are your actors and that's that. They don't tell you. Oh, same thing in film school, which I think is important. When you first start in film school, your actors are free. But when you start filming 2 or 3 scenes in, they know they got your ass because you can't change shit. Yeah. I already knew that, but I always knew like how I can make a way out of that by editing and stuff like that. So I never had problems with if someone would have walked off, even if let's say if it was my lead, I would have done a lot of over the shoulder shots because that's what I've had to do in film school. If they've left, it's over the shoulder shots and it's movements and stuff like that. It's scary. Sure. No one wants that, but it's something you have to think about on those things. I mean, like even if I had to do reshoots, a lot of directors that I know have done the same thing. It's like, oh, we couldn't get this actor back, so we just do it from over the shoulder. It's just a technique and a trick that you do, or you even do like a Texas switch, if you have to, with stairs and stuff like that. So I mean, those are things that you can kind of do as well. So that's why I agree that, you know, being learning how to be a filmmaker, you can't do it by just going to film school and doing shorts. And that's all they make you do is shorts, or they just give you 2 projects, and then that's it. You know, like, oh, you're going to do a silent film. Okay, great. But you know what? You have this parameter. You can't use the cameras at this time of day. You can't use the lights here. They give you all of those things, and it's like, so what the fuck am I supposed to do? And it's like, oh, you're supposed to improvise, which is the good part about it. The bad part about it is they don't give you enough time to even explore anything. You know, and because it's like too late, see you later. And then it's like, well, how do I get better at this? Basically, which they don't say is you got to do this on your own. And there is no book for that. You know, that's just going out and doing this shit and flying off the cusp of your pants. You know, that's what it is. And I got pissed off when I heard people say, it still pisses me off when I hear this. It's like I want to bitch slap them. It's basically when somebody says, I want to get a producer to produce my film. And I was like, have you done a film before? No. You know, I just want to just slap their ass, because that's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because the fact that if you're not invested with your own damn money to do a movie, then and you're going to use somebody else's money, why would you do that to yourself? First of all, because this guy, even if he has money to throw away on you, you know, if you don't finish, then you just wasted this guy's money, period. If you actually finished something, even if it's not a feature, but you went from beginning to ending, at least you got a story, you know, and you could finagle and work on that to make it bigger if you need to. Whereas if you didn't do an ending at all or a beginning, you know, you're fucked. You don't have anything. Mm-hmm. And you're going to want somebody to pay for you to do this. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I would never, I tell people all the time, if you're serious enough about doing this, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot on yourself. And the director and producer is the guy, especially if you're doing it yourself, you're going to sacrifice the most. The money wise, your sanity, you know, possibly even friends, you know. I've had one of my friends thinking that he was going to lose me as a friend. And I'm like, dude, I'm okay. I'm not that crazy. But, you know, you have those thoughts that run through people's heads, you know, on things. And that is something you got to take into account. And people think that it's a personality you have to have if you're a director. That's kind of not true. That's BS, actually, I think, because it's the job that changes you. It's not your personality. Your personality goes through a change. Like before this, I wasn't as confident about like being able to shoot a film in 4 days or 5 days. Now I know I can do it. Will I do it again? Fuck no. But I would give breaks to people knowing that. I think this is the way I would do it now. I would still film 12 to 14 hours, which is crazy. Yes, I get that. But after day 3, I would give everybody a day off. You know, that way they can at least have some time to themselves or relax or whatever. And then start another 2 days up again and do 12 to 14 days and then have a last day where they can break, or maybe in between those other 2 days, those last 2 days. Something like that is probably better for their sanity, you know, and everybody's sanity, in fact. But that
makes your chances of survival much greater.
Right. And you're not going to know that until you go through something crazy as this, because I wouldn't have known how to do that before. I wouldn't have known even to do that before this, you know. So that's something you just learn while you're doing these things. The thing too is it doesn't stop after you're done shooting. Everybody's recovering, you know, and there's people that are just going to give you the finger, like never talk to you again. And I remember telling my producer that, and he tells me this. He said that happens to even the A-list directors. He says this is like, if you look at A-listers, directors' first films, how many of those actors ever talk to them again, or even get interviewed because they still are pissed off about it, or two, that, you know, it was their first time, you know, learning with them. I mean, Jesus, Kubrick didn't really use anybody except for Kirk Douglas again.
A couple times, right? Well, like Alfred Hitchcock too.
Alfred Hitchcock's another. That's it.
There's so many that they
right. Right. You know,
like, nope,
that's the thing. You know, there's a lot of them. John Carpenter loses Kurt Russell, you know, and nobody else except for him and Keith David have come back for twice. I remember I was with you when we went to go see, when we met Roddy Piper, and I asked him questions about Carpenter on They Live, and he didn't want to talk about his experiences really.
I remember, yeah.
So that ended up telling me that, personalities clash no matter what. It's just, and he says, like, I said, yeah, but it's over stupid things that I did that could have been avoided. And he says, even if it was avoided, it still would have been problems. And I was like, what do you mean? He says, well, which was something that happened. He says, when, you get, if your actors try to start dictating to you stuff, you can't let that happen. And I was able to get it back, like I said, but that's when he says that's because there's a clash of personality. That is not a clash of directing, especially when they started to talk about frame up and stuff like that. He says that's personality. If they're looking for close-ups, he says that's personality. That's not directing. He says because that's all actors. They want to have those close-ups.
Right.
And as you know, in Corman films, you don't really have time for close-ups. Right. You're looking at Corman films, a lot of them are master shots and mid shots because that's what you need. I know that, but I can't tell my actors all this shit because they're going to be like, well, that's not fair, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't have time because that would have caused more tension. You have to pick your battles and what you're going to say and how you're going to. Sometimes you don't know how you're going to say it and you just can't say it. So it's like, fuck it. I'll just smile and nod and let them just, yell at me. Which is how it's bad at times. Look, the last day, because we did the insert shots for the effects, because my effects girl was leaving, and I was like, shit, my master shot was ruined because we had to do insert shots. So it's like, all right, well, I got to fly off the cusp and do this. So after they did all the insert shots there, I'm trying to explain how to do it. I'm getting, yelled at by everybody. I'm so tired. I was waiting for constructive criticism at this point because I was so tired. So I'm just waiting until somebody finally says something like, why don't you just go to me and go to them and come back to me? I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And then we go to the DP with DP's like looking on this camera. It's like, oh my God, that works. It's like, yeah, that works. Okay, that's it. And we move on. Sometimes that's going to happen, especially when you don't have time for storyboards anymore and a shot sheet. And when they start saying, like, where's the storyboards and shot sheet, you like laugh because it's the idea that went out day 2. It's like that's not going to work. I went from Lynch to Herzog in like 24 hours practically at that point, and it's like you're picking your shots. You're thinking to yourself, what's going to work? And you know what? That was a lot more liberating than actually having a shot sheet and storyboards, because with storyboards you're limiting yourselves. I've learned that when I was doing this, like, oh my God, I am limiting myself by this. And I'm literally, this is like my first feature. Let me break as many rules with cameras as I can to see what works and what doesn't work, and let's just see what happens. It should be the time to take those chances while you still can, and instead of like thinking about going to film school and saying, I can't do this with the 180. I can't do this because this was, fuck that. Let's just see what happens and try it. And so I broke the rules a couple of times and some of them actually worked, but I wouldn't have gotten that if I literally thought about it long enough and said, like, I can't do that. That's why I think film school is wrong, because they tell you what you can and cannot do. I even wanted to try something different, and a lot of my actors looked like they were ready to kill me when I said, let's go from a wide to a close-up instead of a wide to a mid-shot. And they're like, why would you do that? I'm like, why not? Let's just try this. But a lot of them were stuck in that ideology of this is how to do it.
Because it's like ingrained, right?
Right, and I can't stand that because I can't watch a lot of television because it's so formulaic with shots. Mm-hmm. And you see it, I'm like, oh my God, this is probably why I can't watch half the television shows anymore, because everything is too formulaic. And I'm trying to do something different, story-wise, camera-wise. I'm trying different things. My DP comes from doing documentaries, which I thought was interesting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this will be interesting to do something like this with a film instead, just to see what this will look like. Because then it's going to look a little bit different and interesting, and it already is different, with the story. It takes place in La La Land as is. So it's like, and when people are questioning the reality of things, I'm like, you're questioning, like one guy says, there's 3 rocks in the middle of this area. There's no other rocks around. I'm like, yeah. And he says, I just don't buy it. It's like, yet you buy a nun with a gun running around and a cheerleader storing it and a guy that has a country accent called the Spanish guy. And later on, we have a deer girl dancing. You'll take all of that, but this is the part that really gets to you. 3 rocks. And he's like, good point. That's when, more or less, you just have to not think about practicality and try something different. And I told my producers that, and a lot of them were like, that's the way it should be on your first time. You should try stuff differently. You'll probably fail. And that's how you learn. You're going to learn by failing. You're not going to learn by doing it right. You learn by failing. I learned a lot off of this because I failed significantly on so many different things that I know what not to do next time. But I also know now what personalities I work with best. Actors as well as actors and crew. I know who I can work with and what I like to work with. I now know this on what kind of actors I can work with. And I know what kind of cast members I can work with. I had, which I thought was great, I did this for everybody, like not only for myself, that I asked, the cast to give me their feedback, and I asked the crew to give me their feedback, and on everybody. And this is the thing. Everybody obviously has problems with me. That's because I'm the guy at the top. That's a given. But what I thought was great is like Lisa got like pretty much a 99%, 100%. Everybody liked Lisa. She was perfect. And everybody I talked to had good things to say about you. Everybody, like overall, like I said, don't tell me the things that she needs to work on. Tell me overall how she did, and overall you got really high passing marks, from a lot of people, including my producer. A lot of my producers, in fact, said that like, where the fuck did you find her? One of them said to me. And that I told them, I was like, it's just a friend, and I knew she can do this because of the fact that the way that she tells you where you stand, and you need somebody like that as your AD, and she knows she can do that to me. She knows that, like, we used to work together in the library system. Okay. So when I was fucking around, she'd say, Peter, stop fucking around, and then basically I knew when she was pissed off at me. I knew when she wasn't pissed off at me. I like that in a person because that means that person's not going to go behind my back and tell shit about me. She's going to tell it to my face. That's someone you need as your AD. You want that in a person. So that's the reason why I would always work with Lisa as my AD, is because I know where I stand with everybody, and she's going to tell me, and I'm fine with that. That's something I need to know. Whereas I don't think I've had a bad report on anybody in the cast. Not me, but like just in general with cast being with cast. Most part, everybody seemed they worked out okay. Crew, I've actually had problems with crew though, with other crew members, and that was surprising for me, because I didn't see anything like that, but they did, and so I was like, okay, well, that's good to know. And then this is something that I've actually had to say. This is how I learned how to say no, to people. I didn't want my AD to say this. I didn't want them, anybody else. I was like, I will talk to this person and tell them it's no one's doing it. I'm going to tell you why I can't have you come back, and I end up having to do that. Still friends with these guys, but it's just, you got to separate the business aspect from the friendship.
Right.
And
Absolutely, yeah.
right. Especially if you were friends beforehand. That's why I think some people were nervous about losing me as a friend. And I was like, no, this is totally different. I mean, I can separate the two. I get it. So, even when I told my producers in general, they said, yeah, you can't work with somebody like that. You always have to like root out the people that you just don't work with, because if you see it, whether it's an actor or a crew member, they can bring down the whole entire production if you have a bad egg. So you have to learn how to find those people beforehand and deal with it. Oh, and if it's already too far into production before you notice it, you try to get them off as soon as possible, or out of sight or off production or whatever. And that's something I learned, and they don't teach you that in film school. They never tell you anything like that. Yeah. That is something you're just going to learn, and you're not going to learn that on a short really either, because you're only with these people like 2 or 3 days tops, for a short, and you're not there all fucking day long with them. So you're not really going to know their personality. Right. On a feature, you're going to know everybody's personality, what they like, what they hate. My producer said to me, which I thought was funny, you don't like to play things safe, which is true. I actually it was an adrenaline rush, and I actually loved that, like trying to go fast and keep moving, trying to keep going and cutting things when I needed to cut. Like, oh, we don't have time for this. We got to cut this. We don't have time for this. We got to cut this. This is not working out with dialogue. We got to cut this. And then we'll just have reactionary shots with this guy. That's how it works. Those are things you have to do on the fly. And then figure out how you're going to fix it later. That's how that works.
That's basically what filmmaking is.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's it. And you pray to God, you got enough to make a film and, in editing. And that's a lot of it too. And that's where that comes in as well. It's like a puzzle, when you're looking at everything.
Well, as you guys know, making a film is such a whirlwind and such insanity. What did you do? What did you guys do for levity? Like, what did you guys do to like make it fun? What did you know what I mean? Like, not make it just completely, absolutely batshit insane.
I don't know if we did that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think anybody did that other than like eating when everybody had like time to themselves a little bit when they could eat food on set was probably the only time some people got some downtime for a few minutes to eat stuff.
Well, yeah, like I said, you guys shot this in 5 freaking days.
Yeah,
like that's kind of insane.
Yeah, I don't think I sat down at all, except for maybe once or twice, unless my back was killing me. Yeah. Other than that, I was pretty much I ate on my feet usually. I didn't really sit down to eat. I think I sat down one time because I actually had to talk to my effects girl, who was already there for 2 days, and I got around to talking to her on day 3. That just shows you how fast that was. Even getting a chance to talk to her. Some of my actors I didn't really meet until day 3, so that's also the effect of that. So yeah, and you're just literally high and by to a lot of these people when you're on set. You don't have time to move around with that.
So you guys didn't pull any pranks on Peter while doing this movie? No?
I think they were too tired. They probably wanted to. They probably wanted to all kill me. I'm sure of that.
We were all too brain dead to think of any kind of pranks. We were just like, make it through to the end, just get through to the end. Like, we're almost there. Just don't stop. I mean, that was our focus, was just blinders on, finish. Yeah. We got to finish. We're so close. We got to finish. Like, there wasn't time to think about, unfortunately, there wasn't time to think about pranks or killing Peter in his sleep or anything else like that. It was all just, let's fucking get this done, guys. We are so close. Just get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that crew probably, I often wonder who had it worse, cast or crew, because it was pretty much probably the same thing with that. I often wondered that, because I know like some of the crew members had to be there crack of dawn, with me, so they were there. Lisa came up with, and I think this is probably one of the best things I actually saw on set. And Lisa came up with this. One of my actors was a little nervous about a scene. And she says, why don't you have her come in when the crew does and just work with her for some time on her scene? And I was like, that's a brilliant idea. And he says, y'all two just go over the scene, So I hung out by the coffee maker with her, and she already, and oh my God, she was so prepared. She already wrote down what she kind of wanted to say. And because I told him, make it your own. I'm not Shakespeare, so make it your own, what I write, and then make it what you would want to say. And she wrote down 2 different versions of her monologue that she had to say. And we went over that together for about an hour or two. And I absolutely had more fun doing that because the fact that it was this is someone trying to hone this down and be more relaxed on set and everything else. And that was a lot more fun for me because I got to see, that's the writer aspect of me, that I got to see it and hear coming out of someone else's mouth what this is going to sound like and how she's going to portray it. I love auditioning actors because that's the most fun. You get to write a monologue or whatever, and you get to watch these actors play with what you're writing. That to me is always fun. One of my favorite things, and you know this, I always like hurting my friends on camera, you know, like Sean getting sprayed with fake blood, or, you know, for instance, Frank getting yelled at by a girl, you know, and it was fun to watch that scene because Frank's just reacting. And I mean, stuff like that to me is a lot more fun to see. And those are like my favorite scenes usually when it's friends that I've had for years. I've worked with these actors that are now actors, not just my friends, that I put in these films that constantly show up as my character actors, you know, and that's what I absolutely love about them. And they've grown. I mean, Sean has grown as an actor from doing small little bits to like basically being third billing in this film. And he was nervous, but everybody was looking at him like, you're crazy. You're great in this, you know? And I told him, I was like, this is perfect for you, man. He's no longer, I don't know if he's still nervous, you know, about the acting, but I do know the fact that he is much better and much more relaxed in front of a camera than he used to be. And I really, really think he's come a long way. But those are actors, like I said, those are actors I'm used to working with, and I know how to work with them. And I noticed that as the difference too, when I was on camera, was the actors that I know better, they knew what I wanted because they know Peter speak, you know, more or less. So they, like Sean, I would tell Sean, do this. And Sean's like, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what you're saying, but I get what you're saying. And he would tell me that. And I was like, all right. I was like, then what am I trying to tell you? And he'd tell me, I'm like, all right, that's exactly what I was trying to say. So he gets Peter speak. Whereas the new actors don't. And that's understandable. They're not used to working with me, and I'm not with them. The ones that wanted to go over their lines, which I loved, I get it. The other actors are trained actors, and they basically know their lines, know their shit. They like, whatever, I can do this. It's easy. I just want to know how you like it. That's what they want from me. I don't do fantastic or superb, and I know a lot. And I asked this a lot. I said, do a lot of directors do that? It varies. You know, I just said okay, and that's good. Moving on. You know, because what do we have? 3 takes. That's it. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for, let's move on to the next thing as fast as we can. We got three. Sometimes we did 5, but I would try to keep it to 3 takes for everything. It's tough. You know, it's a tough shoot. And I know that a lot of actors don't like that, but I also think that would make them, at least this is what I think, that would make them work more for the fact that, you know, you only have 3 takes to do this in. And I honestly think that by the 3rd take, you're not going to get it because they're getting more tired at that point. You're going to get it in probably the 2nd take or the 3rd. Or if you had to do 4, that would happen. But you just got to work with what you have and then just keep moving on. You don't have time for perfection. And I think a lot of them want perfection. And I'm more like, I don't care about perfection. I just want done. I want finished product, you know. I mean, that's what everybody should want. At the very least, you know, and some people like, I've shown it to a couple of festivals. They asked for a small rough cut. So I've done like just small little sequences here and there that I can show. I said, I don't have sound yet, but this is kind of gives you a visually what it looks like. I've told some, and they looked at it and they're like, please keep us in mind when you finish. We are very interested in seeing this. And that tells me at the very least that I'm on the right track for some shit. I don't know what the fuck I'm on the right track for, but at least this tells me that somebody out there in these genre films are looking at my shit like, this is really weird shit. and it's different, and that's good. Yeah.
So what point are you at right now? Are you're in the editing stage?
I'm doing a rough cut of what I like before I hand it over to my editors. So basically, it's kind of like how I think the film would work, as opening, closing, middle, that whole aspect. And then I'm adding in things I did from the short film into the feature as well, because that way it works. And then I have to put like insert animation sequence here, which I still have to write the signs for that, that way they'll know that's where the animation sequence is going to be. So there's things like that I'm working on, but it's a little slow because my audio guy is having problems uploading his audio at times on some things, and he's trying to figure out why it isn't. But I'm not angry at all. Some people would be like, really? I would be pissed as hell. It's like, no, these guys are doing the best that they can. There is no reason why I'm going to go yell at them. That's not going to do anything. They're doing their job. They're just trying to figure it out why, at this point with stuff. The thing is that you yelling on set, like I was told by someone on set that I actually yelled, like angry wise. I'm still trying to figure out what day that was. I don't remember. But they told me, I was like, they said I was kind of pissed at if I didn't get a certain shot. And I was like, that's not really being mean. That's just that's any director I know that's like that. They're looking for a certain shot that you're hoping you can get, and you're praying that you can get that shot. Sometimes I got it by breaking the rules, which I thought was great. But that's the thing though, is like most times with what I've talked to people at festivals and all, they said the weirder your film is, the better chances it has of getting in. People don't want the same thing over and over again. And that's why a lot of the producers I talked to said, your shit's weird, man. I mean, you're not going to be mainstream at all. I can tell you that. Your shit's not mainstream. I was like, what is it, like Aronofsky weird? He's like, yeah, it's probably going to be like more or less like Aronofsky weird. It's like, and his stuff, people don't know what the hell you're going to get. I mean, granted, anytime his movies come out, I'll go see it, period, because I know it's going to be weird and different. But not everybody wants weird and different. Some people want, same old. Right. So it just all varies and depends. But he says you'll find your audience no matter what, or your audience will eventually find you. And he asked me this. He says, are you doing this for money? I'm like, my God, no, I'm not doing this for money. Who does this for money? Honestly, if you're looking at making money making films, you're in the wrong business. I always tell people that.
Michael Bay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just the fact that you don't do it for money. You don't think about a salary. If it happens, that's great, but I'm not looking at that at all. Right. I just want to make movies. I just want to tell more stories. So the idea when Lisa asked me, do you want to do this again? It becomes that. It's like, yeah, I want to do this again. I want to tell more stories. I now know what kind of actors I can work with. I now know like how my crew members and I mesh a little bit better. Right. Those things I definitely do know now. But they didn't, before this, I didn't know. And look, I'm grateful that a lot of my actors got along with each other. Jesus, that was something I was really worried about too. But once I brought in my three main actors from LA, they all loved each other right away. So I was like, whew, that works. My witches got along well with each other. So I didn't have problems with cast getting along with cast, it seems, from what I saw. So I don't know if that's different or not, but at least from what I saw, my crew, for the most part, they all got along with each other. I didn't really have anybody like screaming or yelling at each other, or if I did, I didn't see it. But like I said, there's certain things that I didn't see that I'm hearing about on stuff after the fact. So you're not going to see everything when it's on set.
All right. So we know you would do it again.
Yeah.
Lisa, would you do it again?
That's the $1 million question.
Maybe.
Maybe next time if I get paid, I might think about doing it. If I make any money, we'll see.
Fair enough. All right. So what advice would you give to other first-time filmmakers?
You just got to fucking jump off the cliff. You can't stay there. You're going to always wonder what it's going to be like. And I've heard this from students. I've heard this before. Some people like, I've never done it because it's so hard to do. And it's like, it is, but that's why it's called sacrificing, becoming a starving artist. Literally, I became a starving artist because of pressure and nerves. I really fucked up my body. I know that for sure, because my body's like, what did you do to me? It's still wondering what the hell I did to it. But yeah, it's not something you do lightly if you're going to do this. But if you really want to be a filmmaker, you're just going to have to jump, and you're going to have to just take that leap. And yeah, it's going to be scary as shit. But you know what? If you really want to try it, you have to do it. And people are going to look. I've learned this. Some people are like impressed when you actually say you actually finished the feature film. Because it's not easy to do.
And it's kind of a rarity. Like a lot of people start, but they don't finish.
Right, that's it. You know. And I told people like I've had friends that are directors that I asked them all the time. I said, "Well, did you shoot your film?" He's like, "Yeah, I did." I was like, "Was it a feature?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, what happened?" He says, "I only got 63% of this or 53% of this." I'm like, right. So? And he's like, "Well, I mean, I don't have the money to go back and do it." He's like, you write new shit and add it in, or you change somewhat of the story around to fix it to get your film out there. You do whatever you can. You don't stop just because something happens. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do is just quit. You've got to keep pushing through even after it's done. If you don't, like, for instance, if I had 25 minutes, let's just say, afterwards of everything, you think I'm going to just say, well, it's a short now? No, fuck that. I went too goddamn far, for this goddamn project. And everybody else who wants to kill me and doesn't want to kill me, at the very least, would like a fucking feature film out of this, and so would I. So at the very least, you what do? You add scenes, you improvise, you think, just like you would do when you're shooting. You do those type of things, and you keep moving things forward. You don't stop. And I think that's something that a lot of filmmakers, like you said, they just stop because they start it and they never finish it. And I think it's because they get scared, or they're like, it's no longer like the vision I had in my head. And it's called, that's a lot of directors. They don't have that vision in their head once it's done. It doesn't become that sometimes. And you just keep pushing through because you want to do another one. So fucking finish your film. It's that simple of a statement. It's hard, sure, but you got to keep pushing yourself. And a lot of people, I think, are afraid of that after they're wondering, like, will I have time? Will I have time to shoot? Will I have enough time for this scene? You're never going to have time for the scene. I mean, if you don't give yourself, I gave myself a time to start shooting and a time to start ending when I was going to end. Mm-hmm. If you don't do that, if I would have had everybody from here, I probably would have never finished, because I know that I could always use these people over again in a few weeks or something like that. Right. That's not fair. First of all, that wouldn't be fair for like half my actors, and that wouldn't be fair to my crew. What do? You get people from out of town, you get people from out of state, because that's going to force you to really push yourself. And it's also going to force you to try to get something done. And that's a lot of it. You put the pressure on yourself. You're going to have to put pressure on yourself to do it. Because if you hold off when doing it, like, oh, I got this much money, but it's going to cost me to do maybe $1 or $2 grand more, or maybe I should get that, maybe I'll stop it and hold off again. You're never going to do it, because something's always going to come up and stop you from doing it. You're just going to have to like pull the trigger and just go with what you got, and make sure you have at the very least the amount to shoot. And go. And you know what? People are going to yell at you. Things are going to come up that you're not expecting. And I was in the pink, and then I went into the red. I mean, it got to points like that. But there's some things that just happen that are beyond your control. And you've got to think on what you can do. And you need people that are on your side. And the only way you're going to do that is by doing short films. I'll give you that. That's the good thing about short films. You're going to find your crew. You're going to find your people. But you're going to find people that actually are going to be with you to help you. But other than that, you're just going to have to jump, and you're going to have to know that not everybody's going to like you. You're not in the business for people to like you. And I've learned that the hard way, and it does suck and it hurts, but you have to suck it up. You have to keep moving to finish a product. And that's the point of it as a business, is it is a product that you're putting out. And after you're done, you realize afterwards, like, oh shit, I got to keep doing products now. I got to keep moving along and doing other stories and other things. And that's something I think a lot of people are afraid of, because that's the next step, doing that.
Right. So right now, is your brain kind of just working on to the next thing?
I've already have to do that because I've already dedicated myself to another project. It's not my project. It's like, I'm getting paid for it, which is great, but it's technically my project by me writing the script for it, and my project because I'm directing it. But that's as far as it goes. I'm not producing it. So I'm getting, it's a little less pressure on me. But at the same time, I'm trying to help the guy out and the producers out as much as I can from coming off of doing this, and pushing them to tell them, like, you need to do this, you need to try this. And I'm in a position to do that now because I went through the whole thing for shooting a film. And you can have some clout that way with that. But I will tell anybody right off the bat in film school, don't go and quit. My God, save yourself some money. Instead, use it to buy a house. At the very least, I would say watch commentary on Blu-rays and DVDs and 4Ks if they have commentary. Even if the movie is shit, the better, because you're going to learn more on the shittier films and the lower budget films than you will on the higher budget films. Any commentary with Carpenter is gold, because John Carpenter will even tell you, like, that sucked, I should have did this different. Oh yeah, this is a problem when that waft of smoke in there is a problem, because that's when the director was too close to the lens and he's smoking a cigarette, and then you see the waft of smoke that pops up. Yeah. It's things like that you'll see. Ridley Scott is very technical, but he'll tell you everything that happened in a shot and everything that went wrong in a shot. And he doesn't use storyboards. He used to, and he says they don't work on action sequences. You get an idea, he says, but you're not married to it.
Right.
Right. And it's things like that. So I would just tell students to watch movies, read a lot, because no one's going to give you the money to do your stuff. You're going to need to read a shit ton of books, like fiction, nonfiction, whatever. Fill your brain with stories, because you're going to have to be a writer to be a director. Most directors are their own writers, especially in the very beginning. So the idea that directors are just like, some of these students are just like, they watch a lot of TV or they watch a lot of movies, don't do that, because you're just going to regurgitate everything that you saw, and you can tell when something feels like it's something else and it's not an original idea, or it's boring. So yeah, those are the things I would definitely tell students to do. I'm wondering how many students want to become ADs though.
As your AD laughs maniacally. All right, so Lisa, yeah, any final thoughts on this whole journey of Cannibal Witches from Hell?
It was one person described it as one of the most traumatic experiences of their life, and the more I sit here and have time to reflect on those 5 days, the more I'm like, what, it was a traumatic experience, in every way that you could even describe. But I learned a lot. I learned what I was made out of, first and foremost. I learned what a lot of the cast and crew were made out of. Like, I really learned a lot about people and human nature on this set, and throughout the filming. And it was definitely an experience that I'll never forget. It was traumatic, difficult, exhausting, but it was still very rewarding in a sense. And I'm even, more excited to see what the rough cuts look like if Peter ever shares it with me. Excited to see the final product. But it was definitely a learning experience. And then, would I do it again? It's definitely possible I think the right project would have to present itself. Like I said, getting paid would definitely help with that. But no, it's like I can definitely mark it off of my bucket list now because it was something that I had always been interested in, but never thought would actually come to fruition. So
Right.
Peter helped it come to fruition. You know, he pulled me in. He took a big gamble on me. I took a big gamble on him. And, you know, again, like it was one of those things that everyone came out alive and we all survived. And we all walked away with one or you know, hundreds of stories to talk about later on if we want to recall said traumatic experience. But definitely learning experience. You know, you don't, if the people who were involved in this film don't walk away with something positive, then shame on them, because while there was a lot of shit and it was a shit show to the max, there is definitely some positives that came out of all of the chaos. So yeah.
All right. Well,
Good.
that sounds great. So I cannot wait to actually see the final product here. Any sort of time frame when that may happen?
Well, it all depends on the animation, and it also depends on when I get the audio, you know, done to me. So once I have that, I can give everybody a better idea. But I will definitely say the one thing I came out of this with was confidence. Out of this for myself. Before, I was always worried what people thought about me, and I was always worried what other people are going to think about me. And this basically just says, "Fuck it." That's all you can say at that point, because not everybody's going to like you. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like me, right now. Will that change? I don't know. But I do know that that's part about being a director. You are in a leadership role. As a producer, you're on a leadership role. Did I do this to be a leader? Fuck no. I did this just to tell a story. That's all I ever wanted to do. So I learned how to be a leader in some way, in some form, or what it takes to do that. But if anything, you bleed out confidence, and you can't show that. I mean, I'm sure everybody had a nervous breakdown some type of way. I fucking did, obviously, but it was traumatic for everybody. I'm not going to lie. I know it was, you don't do this normally, but that's part of why I did it, was to see if I could do it. And to see if I can pick a team that would go along and do this crazy shit with me. And yes, it is going to be I already had a feeling from listening to Corman stuff that it's traumatic working with Corman and how fast you had to be. So I had an idea of that, but I didn't know how bad of an idea it would be.
Yeah.
Though I will tell anybody as a first-time filmmaker, you're going to have to do something like this, especially if you're doing genre. Genre is hard to do. So I've learned if I do genre again, which I probably will, because that's all I ever want to do. I think directors who do genre films are harder working directors than a filmmaker that's just shooting a drama. Because I'm sorry, but drama is fucking easy to shoot compared to like shooting as a director. I'm not talking about acting. I'm talking about directing. If you are a drama filmmaker and you're not pushing yourself, because doing that is easy. I could do a drama, but I can't write a drama, so I won't have a chance to ever do that. But at the very least, I think I'd be bored out of my mind, because it's just the actors acting. The actors are getting a lot out of it. I'm not getting shit, because it's just not something I'm built into. I honestly think, though, that if you want to be a good director, get out of the way. If you want to be a good director,
direct the cat out the way.
Yeah, if you want to be a good director, the thing that you can do is, let me get it real quick. Come down. All right.
You can be there. It's fine.
There you go. Anyway, what I was saying is, if you want to be a good director and you're a film student, you fucking do a genre film to push your ass. because, and especially learn your actors, because if your actors are coming from drama, they don't know shit. They don't know the difference. And I should have definitely put that in my film stuff to let them know that, look, you're going to get dirty. This is going to be tough. I know this now, but you're going to get dirty. This is going to be tough. This is hard shit. This is not going to be easy at all. So if you're up for that and you're up for pushing yourself, for trying something new and different, then yeah. But this is not going to be, and I remember telling my producer this afterwards, this is what I've learned. And he told me, he's like, yeah, absolutely, dude. He says, you got to let them know what they're getting themselves into, because they think they know what they're getting themselves into. They have no idea what they're getting themselves into. He says, so be up front next time, because you didn't know, and which is true. I had no idea. So he says, next time now you know what kind of actors you need. You're going to need the actors, and this is his words. He says, you're going to need the actors that are willing to fall down in the water and mud, cold ass water, get back up and keep going, and doing it over and over again without, being tired, splashing with blood multiple times. He says, you had 4 days. He says, if you had 2 weeks, would you've done more shots? Like, dude, yes. He's like, yeah. He says, so that's what you need. You need people to know that you're in the woods, it's cold, all that stuff. You're not going to feel good. It's not going to feel good, and so on and so forth. But that's a genre film for you. That's what B-movie genre films are. Those actors are pushing themselves. And that's why they have so many fans, because they know what it's like to do this crazy shit. And they know that this is part of that thing. The filmmaker knows that they push themselves constantly in genre pictures all the time. My crew and cast now definitely know what kind of director I am. And most of them will say, fuck no, I'm not working with that asshole again. But others, I've already know that they said, yeah, fuck yeah, I'd work with you again. And if you want to put me in the water and throw me around, I would do it. I'm like, Jesus, don't give me ideas, but they were all up for it. So you have your different types of actors that are totally up for what they want. And you also have your other actors that, look at stuff as, what is this going to do for my career? Which I understand. But if you're asking that question, B movies are definitely not for you. That's the thing I've learned. B movies are not for you, because it is a different caliber of feature of things. You're not going to get that. Sean has been with me enough where he knows what kind of director I am. Sean Halloran played the Spanish guy. He knows what kind of director I am. He gets splashed with so much blood, and he's like, I fucking hate you, Peter. He tells me this every time. I fucking hate you, Peter. But at the same time, Sean will also be the guy that wears boots, and I mean, he will not complain to me about stuff. He would just keep going. And I'm like, dude, you should tell me if you're hurting. He's like, nah, I'm not doing that. But that's him that's him. Some people are not like that. And that's the difference between the actors you want to have versus the actors that you may end up having. You start doing it. I know I'm going to do this again, so I know what kind of actors I'm going to use. I know what preferences I have. I know what actors I can't use personality wise. I know all of those things now. Those things you only know by doing this. You can't sit on the sidelines and you can't do a short because you're not going to know. So for me, in closing with it is confidence as a director. Keep pushing yourself. Fuck everybody, because you got to just get the job done. That should be your main priority, is getting the job done, because as much as everybody's going to complain about stuff, and they have good complaints, I'm not saying they didn't, but I'm just saying at the same time, you've got to keep your eye on the prize. You've got to finish this. That, as a director, that is your primary goal, is to finish the project and try to come out on time, or at the very least, somewhat on time. And this is my first time, so I went a day over. But hell, they were even telling me, you went over a day doing a feature film. You shouldn't be upset about that.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, he says you should not be upset about it. You should be praising yourself. He says there's reasons why people are interested in podcasts and stuff, just to talk to you, because that's unheard of. He says, but number two, the idea that you got people to come along and do this that you never knew, and they said, okay, that's another thing that people can't do really. And you're able to do that, you know? So you've got to, he says, you got to learn how to congratulate yourself too, as much as you give yourself shit. You know, I give myself a lot of shit. I'm my worst critic. I mean, my God, you know, I'm always nervous about every goddamn thing I say and do at this point because of that. But at the same time, it's also like, oh, well, and I can't care and I shouldn't care, because you just need to keep moving on, you know, on to the next thing. And that's the thing that I think most directors and most people, most students don't know how to do. They're so scared of like people not liking them, or, oh, well, or hiding it. And you just got to say, fuck it and keep going. I mean, I know now that's a big thing with directing for me.
There you go. Well, to me, it sounds like every director needs a Lisa.
Now that's the damn truth.
You know, that's what it sounds like to me. But you know, who am I? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I would like to congratulate both you guys on doing this insane thing that y'all did. All right, guys. Well, we are going to get out of here. I'd like to thank Peter and Lisa for joining us today. And until next time, remember to stay spooky. Peace.